Missed the earlier chapters? Pause now and check the previous recap. Things are about to explode. Go watch them before this gets even crazier. Taekyung begins to break down as he remembers what happened during his last raid. It is up to him now to defeat the warrior. He gets into his battle stance and performs his one-strike ability, but it ends in a hilarious tragedy. The attack does nothing to the warrior, for it lacks the power needed to have an impact, unlike his Murim version of himself. The spear hits the buttocks of the warrior, but it does not go through. The wooden spear begins to bend, as if it were melting plastic. This makes Taekyung gain the warrior's attention as he faints from his failure. The warrior swings his club once more, but before it touches Taekyung, the system finally notifies him. This wakes up Taekyung, and it says that the synchronization is complete and that the system has been transferred. Taekyung gets back up and blocks the warrior's attack unscathed. Inside him, chi begins to build up and rapidly flows throughout his body. He manages to not only block the attack, but also parry it. Chi emits out of Taekyung's body as he activates his chi sense on the warrior. This situation makes Taekyung tremble, but not from fear, but from excitement. The warrior roars and begins to send a flurry of blows towards Taekyung, but he easily dodges the attacks with the help of his footwork technique. The warrior is frustrated and sends a powerful slam attack to Taekyung, but even that was dodged easily. Taekyung then proceeds to use his spear attacks to land multiple blows on the warrior's body. The first strike dismembered the warrior's arm, and the rest left a bunch of wounds on it. The warrior was so overwhelmed by Taekyung's attacks that he was backed into a corner. Taekyung expresses his disappointment when he did not even need to use his one-strike skill. He ends the fight by nonchalantly stabbing the warrior in the mouth and through the head. The system pings a notification, and the sound of the system makes Taekyung grateful for its return because it saved his life. Choi calls out to him, as he is confused by what just happened. Behind the two of them were both slain C-rank monsters. Choi asks for Taekyung's identity, for it is impossible that an F-rank killed a C-rank. After the raid, the people who were in charge of the gates were thrown into an uproar. Only 4 E-rank hunters suffered injuries, but thankfully they weren't in critical condition. Whenever an incident like this occurs, it is required by law that the government compensate any damages to gear, medical bills that had to be paid, and any raid rewards lost. In the background, we can see Taekyung purposefully damaging his own armor with a smirk on his face. The government will be compensating him with a new set of gear. If one were to combine everything they earned from the raid, they could guarantee a quite profit. After the 4 injured hunters were transported to an ambulance, Choi was escorted to the civil service department to give his report. In a different van, we can see Taekyung testing the system's mechanics once more. It really shows that it is back in use, but his character profile has changed. He does not have any points of fame, and his titles have been changed. The things that affected him in Murim have all disappeared. Well, then again, it is not like he is the son of a rich noble in reality, nor is he the sleeping dragon or whatnot. He then opens the quest menu, which reveals the betrayer quest. It explains that he has found out who the betrayer was, and he is told to regroup with the main forces and alert them of the betrayer. Lastly, he has to lead his people to victory. This means that the system is telling him to go back to Murim. He has a sudden realization that the fact that the system can exist in the real world might mean that Murim is not just a game. Before he can finish his deep realization, Choi peeps into the tinted window of the van and gives Taekyung a jump scare. Choi hops into the van and tells him that he gave a quick report on what went down and that they should contact him within the next few days. He also notifies Taekyung that he will be investigated as well, which he does not want to experience again. Taekyung then asks if Choi fulfilled his request from earlier. We then get to see the aftermath of their battle, where Taekyung is asking Choi to keep everything related to him confidential. He worries that the system will be permanent or temporary, so it is best if nothing gets leaked to the public. Choi then asks him to take a look at his fancy-looking watch. He reveals that it is made by N Company, using a C-rank magic gem. It has also been enchanted with some defensive magic, so Choi can use it as a shield during emergency situations. Taekyung is confused as to why the sudden lecture occurred, but accepts the explanation regardless. They then plan to grab some premium Korean steaks, which Taekyung has never eaten before. Moments later, we can see Choi and Taekyung discussing the matter over cooked steaks. Choi explains that he told the higher-ups that he was the one who subjugated both the rare monsters. Taekyung expresses his gratitude as he munches on freshly cooked steak. Choi then drops a bomb on Taekyung by asking him if he wants to join his guild, which naturally surprises Taekyung and makes him spit out fragments of lettuce out of his mouth. Moments later, Choi is left alone at the table, and the food has already been cleaned out. It's revealed that Taekyung told him he has something important to do and requires more time to think about the matter at hand. Suddenly, Choi's phone rings, and he quickly answers it. An unknown figure is asking Choi what he wants to know about Taekyung. He responds by asking for everything, especially information that stands out. The caller then tells him that Taekyung has quite a big case and reveals the basic information that we already heard. But out of that information, something stands out. This information also surprises Choi, since he did not expect it. It is revealed that Taekyung was the sole survivor of the Sandong District Gate incident. After that incident, he disappeared for about half a year and was interrogated by a lot of different inspectors. He recently returned to his guild about a year ago and has been running gates nonstop for that duration. He was fired about 4 days ago for the purpose of reorganizing the guild. The caller infers that the real reason he was fired was because of that incident. They just let him go after carefully avoiding the eyes of the inspectors. The caller bets that Taekyung was a real burden to them. Choi then asks for a copy of all the information that was relayed before hanging up. He collects his thoughts and tries to find a good idea from them. He comes up with 2 possibilities. Either he has been hiding his strength, or he has recently had another awakening, which sounds more likely. He questions the possibility of one going from F rank to C rank that quickly. But his deep thought is cut off when he pays for their dinner bill. 19,370 were the bill amount that dropped Choi's jaw and turned his skin pale. Moments later, we can see Taekyung frantically looking for something. He wonders who took his VR capsule that he dumped in the middle of the street. He screams his frustration loudly, which is hilariously responded to by Song Jin-ho. He makes a short comedy skit reference, which annoys Taekyung so much that he yells at him louder than ever. Song Jin-ho calms down Taekyung's anger by telling him that he really has the capsule, which turns Taekyung's angry eyes into hard eyes as he does a cutesy confession skit. Later that night, we can see Taekyung lying down on his bed as he tries to collect his thoughts after everything that just happened earlier. Back at the restaurant, Choi tells Taekyung that he will be receiving $100,000 as a down payment, and they will be paying him additional to the amount as they would pay for C rank hunters. Under normal circumstances, Taekyung would have signed, stamped, sealed, and even left a kiss mark on the contract paper. But what if the system disappeared the next day? The world is a dangerous place for him to be placed in that situation. But what if the system was permanent and he got to keep his current strength? He couldn't hold himself back anymore and quickly rushed out of the room. Even though he worked really hard for the past 7 years, he could never escape the label of being an F-rank hunter. He wants to get rid of the shackles that bind him to the ground and hinder his development. He sprints as fast as he can as he looks for a taxi that will take him to the Hunters Association in the Buchan District. There, he will be taking a hunter ranking reevaluation the next day. At the Hunters Association, a man praises his son for becoming a D-rank hunter. He recruits his son into his own guild, since he already removed all the low-ranking ones that annoyed him. While the father and son were conversing, a bunch of people began running to the evaluation room. Apparently, a C-rank hunter has made an appearance, and his ability to control mana is above an A rank, which catches the father's attention and activates his greed. Everyone waits for the star of the rumor to come down to the lobby. They wait in front of the elevator and become excited when it starts moving down. The father from earlier thinks that this might be a great chance to recruit someone strong. He checks around to see if there are any potential rivals that will get in his way. He doesn't see any, and since his guild master told him not to worry about the cost, he will offer him twice as much as anyone else. If he can successfully recruit this person into his guild, he can probably promote himself to become a vice guild master. The elevator reaches the lobby, and the father bows down into a perfect 90-degree angle and introduces himself as the captain of Sopan Guild, Kim Sung-shik. He then explains how their guild is considered a renowned guild, but the person he is talking to thinks otherwise. Sung-shik hears a familiar voice, and when he looks up, he is also greeted by a familiar face. It turns out the person they were waiting for is none other than Taekyung, who looks down on the desperate Sung-shik. Sung-shik was Taekyung's former boss. He was one of the 3 D-rank hunters in the guild, and he only cared about protecting his own life inside the gate. He was your typical petty man who would bully the weak. Since he was the team captain, he would always pick on the F-rank hunters, and out of the hunters, he hated Taekyung the most. 2 years ago, after the incident in Sangdong District, he would talk behind Taekyung's back, all while pretending to worry. The one who advised the guild master to fire him was none other than this man. And he was also the one who personally notified Taekyung of his dismissal. Back to the present, Sung-shik questions Taekyung on why he was the one who got off the elevator. Taekyung then tells everyone to get out of his way. He plans to head out, ignoring their pleas to join their guild. The fact that Taekyung humbled the petty and egotistical Sung-shik made him feel like 10 years' worth of poop got flushed out of him. The recruiters have become more persistent with their pleading, but they have all been turned down by Taekyung. Later, outside the building, Taekyung can be seen tossing out all of the business cards he received from the recruiters. Not even a minute has passed since one of the recruiters chased after Taekyung to redeem themselves. It was Sung-shik, and he begins to talk formally as he pleads for Taekyung's forgiveness, while breathing heavily after running. He then says that he will take full responsibility for everything, and hopes that he will let bygones be bygones. He explains that if Taekyung does not join a big guild, it pretty much means that his career as a hunter will end. Taekyung already knows about this information, but Sung-shik still tries to shamelessly recruit Taekyung to the point where it can be considered pathetic. Sung-shik is obviously panicking at this point. The F-rank hunter he told him to get rid of has reawakened into a C-rank hunter. If the guild master hears about that news, Sung-shik will be in definite trouble. Taekyung signals for a taxi, but Sung-shik tries to make a last-ditch effort by blocking his way inside and continuing to beg. Taekyung has had enough of it and tells him that if he really wants to recruit Taekyung, he will have to make sure a certain message reaches the guild master. There is one person he does not want to see when he joins them, and that person is Sung-shik. If he can get rid of that one person, Taekyung will consider joining their side. Sung-shik finally snaps and tries to land a punch on Taekyung's face so he can relieve his frustrations, but naturally he gets counterattacked and is sent flying. Taekyung takes a seat in the taxi and asks for the driver to take him to the Hope Guild headquarters in Songnai District. Funny fact, by the way, the taxi driver was the same driver who refused to drive in the night before for the reason that he can only operate in the Seoul metro area. Taekyung quickly gets out of the taxi and slams the door as he wonders why Seoul metro taxis function outside their jurisdiction. Moments later, we see tropical rainforest scenery. Deep inside the forest is where a gate rests. Then, two people donning armor step out of the gate. It is revealed to be Taekyung and Choi. Choi is donning his new armor set and spear, while panicking about the fact that he ended up coming with Taekyung. A few hours before, we could see Taekyung meditating and gathering chi on his bed, when all of a sudden, a system notification popped up. It tells him that his hangover has subsided. It is revealed that the Peace Guild sent over $10,000 via online deposit. With that money, Taekyung went all out to celebrate. He bought a bunch of meat and alcohol and had a party with Song Jinho last night. The system then notifies him that his chi meditation has been completed and that a small amount of turbid chi has been dispelled. Taekyung wonders why the chi he is able to gather is so small, not to mention that he has some turbid chi. It is completely different from when he used it in the Murim world. He then wonders if it is caused by the environmental pollution in reality. As Taekyung continues to wonder, his phone vibrates on his desk and notifies him that someone has messaged him. The message entails that the sender wonders if Taekyung has some free time that day. Moments later, we can see Choi and Taekyung sitting across from each other in a cafe. They discuss Taekyung's recruitment over coffee, and Taekyung insists that it is difficult for him to join a new guild immediately. Choi couldn't do anything about that, so he pulled out an alternative offer. He takes out an envelope from his blazer and hands it over to Taekyung. The contents of the envelope were a temporary contract, which is the equivalent of hiring Taekyung as a mercenary. Choi explains that it is not an official contract, and the conditions of the contract are similar to those of a B-rank hunter. He follows it up by saying that Taekyung can decide on the length of the contract as well. With all that effort, Choi asks if Taekyung will be refusing this deal as well. Taekyung hesitates for a moment before asking Choi the reason why he is going this far for someone like Taekyung. Choi does not hesitate to answer that question by saying that he trusts himself. He trusts his intuition and ability to determine the value of a person, and that is why he really wants someone like Taekyung to join his guild. Choi then asks Taekyung once more, and this time, Taekyung agrees to sign the contract. Taekyung sets the duration of the contract to last for a week, which should be enough for him to see if the system is a temporary thing or not. He then asks Choi if he should show up to work tomorrow, and Choi doesn't waste a second to answer. No, because we will be starting now. Now, back to the present. Inside the rainforest gate, we can see Choi and Taekyung inspecting their surroundings. They are currently inside a D-rank gate, and the size of the gate is normally larger than any gates of a lower ranking. Choi then pulls out a map that was given to them when they bought the rights to the gate, so they shouldn't be worried about getting lost. Taekyung then asks Choi what he meant when he said that he bought the rights to the gate. Choi tells him that it is what it sounds like, that the gate is now officially his, and that he has sole ownership of the gate, which surprises Taekyung. Taekyung recollects some information about the gates and explains that in South Korea, the gates are the property of the nation. Since these gates have the ability to provide unlimited amounts of energy from magic gems, they're pretty much considered the same as a diamond mine. He already knew that Choi was the son of a rich family, but he did not think that he would be this well off to the point that he bought a gate for himself. The light of richness flashes in Taekyung's eyes and blinds him. They proceed to traverse deeper into the forest, and as they move forward, Choi explains that the monsters that appear at the gate are the swamp lizard men. They're a large tribe that breaks off into smaller militaristic forces. Since they are currently at the entrance, they will start to see the smaller and weaker forces first. Lizard men usually come in groups of 20, so Choi advises Taekyung to hurry and kill them before moving on. Taekyung begins to worry about the fact that Choi is looking down on a D-rank gate a little excessively. For Taekyung, the swamp lizard men are not known to be weak monsters, which makes him think that Choi might be confident in his own abilities. Earlier, back in the cafe, we could see Taekyung freaking out when Choi told him the details of the mission and that it would only be the two of them going in the gate. It freaks Taekyung out so much to the point that he might resign the contract, but before he does anything rash, Choi understands how he feels about it too. However, what Choi said next surprised Taekyung. He explains that he too is a reawakened hunter, which naturally surprises Taekyung since he knows that Choi is a C-rank hunter, but that rank is outdated. Choi then mentions that he received his reawakening after that, which means that he is at least B rank or higher. Back to the present. We can see Taekyung activating his chi sense, so he can see just how strong Choi currently is, but before he does anything, a harpoon lands in front of Taekyung. Choi then explains that the lizard men usually use a harpoon as their weapon, so he asks Taekyung to be careful, but it might be a bit too late for that. Standing above a cliff, the duo of hunters watched. In front of them, level 40 lizard men, wearing revealing armor, grabbed their attention. They had yet to attack. Suddenly, a flurry of harpoons flew toward Taekyung, meant to kill him, but he easily blocked the attack. Then, a lizard man dropped down from the cliff, starting a solo attack on the two hunters. Choi explained, the lizardman's characteristic is to fight head-on, proving they are rash creatures. The lizard man chose Taekyung as its target, slashing at him with its harpoon. Taekyung barely reacted in time, but managed to block the attack with his new spear. He wondered, why the heck is the lizard man only attacking me and not Choi? Choi explained, it's because of your gear. The lizard men hunting leather set and the lizard men massacre harpoon. Their names alone make the reason clear. Taekyung realized, at this rate, I might be the only one getting their attention. He suddenly realized that Choi must have done this on purpose. He called out to Choi, you're using me as bait while you kill the unaware lizard men. A moment of tension filled the area as the lizard men began approaching the hunters. That tension vanished when Choi gave Taekyung a reality check. He pointed out, before we enter the gate, you chose all the gear you're currently wearing. Secondly, regardless of what happens, I will not be making a single move during the raid. So don't misunderstand. Taekyung was confused by what Choi said and asked for clarification. Before Taekyung could say another word, another harpoon almost hit his head. He blocked the attack, but was now on the defensive, fighting a group of lizard men by himself. Taekyung asked Choi, why are you doing this? But before he finished his sentence, Choi disappeared. Taekyung looked for him and found him sitting on a tree branch, cheering for his victory. He cursed him out before another wave of harpoon attacks were blocked by Taekyung once more. Seriously annoyed, he got into a battle stance. He began using his spear techniques, and lizard blood was shed. The system window popped up. It stated that the lizard men items Taekyung had equipped had their status effects applied, adding 30 additional damage. It also notified him that he had single-handedly taken care of the lizard men in the area. It warned him to stay on guard, as these monsters would not stop until they had their revenge. Moments later, a lizard man passes away from the damage it sustained. Taekyung stands in the center of a massacre. The system notifies him that he has defeated another lizard man and that he has leveled up a couple of times. Choi finally jumps off his tree branch and approaches Taekyung from behind. Before Taekyung gets to cuss out the man who has left him to fend for himself, Choi apologizes for his actions. He needed to confirm Taekyung's skills. He needed to know how Taekyung moved and how many opponents he could take on, and he also needed to figure out how far he could take Taekyung with him. Regardless of Choi's intentions, he still should not have just left Taekyung to fight all of those monsters by himself. Choi defends himself by saying that he was confident that he would be able to take care of them on his own, but he never expected Taekyung to take care of them without suffering a single scratch. Something then sparks inside Taekyung's brain. He clears his throat. He begins to act cheeky based on what Choi just said and smirks at his tester. He then asks what Choi's verdict was, but his response is very vague, for he isn't sure what he thinks yet. So, he pulls out a canister from his pocket, and a red mist begins to flow out of it. Choi tells the confused Taekyung that the mist was pheromones that were harvested from female lizard men. This makes Taekyung realize something horrific. The ground begins to shake, and a loud noise is coming from the forest. The source of the noise is coming towards them. Choi smiles and tells the frustrated Taekyung that the effects of the pheromones are quite strong. That was proven to be true when a huge wave of lizard men began to flow out of the forest. Choi asks the worried Taekyung if he can manage to take down the wave by himself. He responds by asking if he cannot manage. Choi will be there to help him, which he quickly declines. Behind the wave of lizard men, in the core of the wave, stands a huge lizard man, and it roars at the humans. The system reveals that the monster is a chief lizard man, and that the roar just now was his battle cry skill. Choi creeps up behind the pale Taekyung and whispers that he could always retreat, but Taekyung's nervousness disappears as he begins to approach the upcoming wave of monsters. He then opens his character menu, and it reveals that Taekyung is now level 40 and that he still has 100 available skill points. He assigns 30 to his strength and stamina, then adds the remaining 40 to his agility. He then feels the effects of the distribution of points, and the wave of monsters is now nearing him. Choi focuses as he gets into his battle stance. Before activating his ultimate skill, One Strike, he activates it. The attack sends out a beam of light that pierces everyone with a force comparable to a powerful railgun. Taekyung's spear attack pierced through the wave of lizard men so easily that it took out the entire wave, with the use of only one single attack. Choi can only watch in disbelief as Lizardman's body parts rained down to the ground. And in the center of it all was a newly reawakened C-rank hunter. The rare monster he took down when they went to the previous E-rank gate needed the power of 2 C-rank hunters. However, the strength that Taekyung just displayed would be unbelievable if he were only considered a C-rank. Choi only decided to launch this 2-man raid because he wanted to see Taekyung's limits, but now he is only left with more questions than answers. He might be able to get the answer he needs when they go to C-rank gate next time. Choi then suddenly went pale when he realized that there was also the possibility that Taekyung might be stronger than himself. Out of nowhere, Taekyung suddenly screams, "No!" And not in the sense that a tragic accident happened. Well, maybe for him it was. His last attack was so powerful for him that he realized it too late when he saw the corpses. There were some rare monsters in the monster wave, and since his attack wiped them all out, he also wiped out all the precious materials that could have made him richer than ever. After watching Taekyung's cries of anguish for his lost materials, Choi disregards his own worries and refuses to believe that Taekyung is stronger than him. They both leave the gate. Moments later that night, Taekyung and Choi are changing back into their civilian attire, while Choi's personal butler assists them. Taekyung asks what time he has to come tomorrow, which confuses Choi for some reason. Choi asks him if he thought that they were going to work on the weekend. Taekyung thought that it was normal to work on the weekends as well, so he responded to him with that thought process. Choi is super surprised at what he is hearing. His reaction can be compared to learning about a revolutionary invention. Choi pulls himself together and explains that the purpose of the weekend is to rest and that the law requires hunters to follow that purpose. He then wonders if Taekyung's previous guild forced him to work on the weekends as well. Taekyung nonchalantly dismisses that kind of reasoning. He explains that there are not many mid-tier guilds that follow that rule. They let them go on those raids by adding more to their wages, and since they do not want these raids to be left on their records, they are normally paid with cash. Choi rebuts Taekyung's reason. He argues that Taekyung is now officially a C-rank hunter, so there's no need for him to live his life that way. Taekyung still tries to persuade Choi to let him work, so they can get a lot more done, since he doesn't know if the system will disappear or not. Choi ends the discussion with a final rebuttal. He explains that Taekyung will only tire himself out, and that he has to take his family into consideration. This makes Taekyung realize that he has only been able to talk to them over the phone. He hasn't had the chance to visit them for a few months now, including his time in the Murim world. Choi reminds Taekyung that their guild, the Peace Guild, upholds the Hunter's Law. That is also stated in Taekyung's temporary contract. He firmly reminds him that he shouldn't do anything but rest during this weekend. Otherwise, he will be breaking the contract. Taekyung couldn't think of another rebuttal, so he had no choice but to agree with his leader. This makes him think that Choi was a decent man, but that was before he remembered the fact that he made him run 3 C-rank gates in one day. The things Choi made him go through make Taekyung's blood boil. This makes him think that Choi is making him rest during the weekend because he wants to repeat his abuse next week. He feels bad for the butler as well, since he is unable to depart even though it's pretty late. The butler pulls out a briefcase and hands it over to Taekyung. The weight of the briefcase was so heavy that even Taekyung was struggling to carry it. Choi explains that the contents of the case are Taekyung's weekly payment. He says that he put in a little bit more than what the contract stated. He also included the total balance in there, so he tells Taekyung to make sure to check it for himself. Choi and his butler then get in their van and depart. Taekyung pauses for a moment before looking around to see if the area is clear of onlookers. He then places the heavy case on a bench and opens it, which reveals a large number of Korean won bills. Inside the case was also a piece of paper that contained the balance statement. During this entire process, Taekyung is trembling and dripping sweat for all kinds of reasons. The balance statement states that the amount of money inside the case would be equivalent to $30,000. But Taekyung can clearly see that it is more than that number. He then remembers that Choi said that he would be adding a little extra. That amount can be seen on the bottom of the statement papers. The bonus would amount to $270,000, bringing the total amount of money contained in the case to $300,000. Taekyung quickly takes back any cursed statements he made to Choi. He starts to treat him like a godlike figure. Money symbols pop out of Taekyung's eyes. He states that he will offer his entire body for the Peace Guild. Moments later, we see Taekyung getting off an elevator. He stands in front of a door with 1201 on the plate. He inputs the security code of the door and unlocks it. As he opens the door, he is greeted by his mother and sister. He is so glad to see them that he gives them a very warm smile. In return, they sit down at the dining room table. Taekyung shares his stories as an adventurer. He then reveals the contents of his backpack to be the money he got from Choi, which naturally surprises them. He pulls out his new Hunter ID, and on it is his new C-rank title. Like her older brother, money symbols pop out of Taekyung's sister, who gets excited for this opportunity. She dragged her family all over the mall to shop for new items. Later on, they are eating in a luxurious restaurant while wearing formal attire. Seeing the family together after a long time makes Taekyung's mom so happy, and she gives him a gentle smile for this newly found memory. Moments later, we are greeted by a dark fog. Someone is calling out to Taekyung repeatedly. It was his sister calling out to Taekyung, and he could be seen sweating buckets on his bed. The system notifies him that his sleep mode has ended. But, for some reason, Taekyung is breathing heavily as his skin turns pale. Taekyung's sister is worried for her brother, since he seems to have woken up from a nightmare. He slowly gets out of bed and tries to remember what he was dreaming about. He cannot remember the contents of the dream, but there are some unknown negative feelings that he cannot simply shake off. Usually, when he sleeps, the system does a good job of adjusting his body's condition. But this is the first time he has experienced something like this. His sister then worries about him and says that if there is something troubling him, he should let them know. She tells him to stop shouldering all of the burden by himself to the point that even their mother is worried about him. He responds with a funny joke that led them into starting your average sibling bickering. Taekyung then tells his sister that there's nothing much for him to worry about. He's pretty much got all of their living expenses covered. But there is one thing that he is suddenly worried about: how they go to spend all of their money from now on. So, Taekyung then tells his sister that there is nothing to worry about and to just focus on her studies. She calls him out for his bluff before turning around and telling him that she is also doing well, so he doesn't need to worry about her. But what she said next really surprised him. She asks him, "Who is Jin Taekyung?" This question turns Taekyung's skin pale. A few days have passed. We see Taekyung doing another gate run with Choi. He is currently fighting another wave of lizardmen by himself, again. But this time, some of the attacks land on him. He takes out all of the lizardmen, but Choi points out that Taekyung got hit 3 times. He tells his leader that he can easily take care of his wounds by drinking a low-rank potion. Choi states that Taekyung, in this situation, is not fine at all. He explains that the gate they are currently at is the same gate as the one they ran last time. He didn't suffer a single injury back then. That means that there's only one possible explanation for this. He then asks if there's something bothering him. We then jump forward 3 days. Taekyung is still fighting the lizard men at the same gate. He just finished his fight, and now he is tired and covered in cuts. Choi doesn't like what he sees and sends Taekyung home, but he will contact him later on. Moments later, we see Taekyung contemplating and wondering what was wrong with him as he takes a bus ride home. The system hasn't disappeared, and he already has a lot of money. So what was wrong with him? All he needs to focus on are his duties as a C-rank hunter and nothing else. We then jump back in time to when Taekyung's little sister asked him who Wee Kyung was. Taekyung asks her where she heard of that name, to which she responds by saying that she heard him yell his name over and over while he slept. She then asks, "Who is Wee Kyung to you, brother?" She infers that he must be a close person to him, since he kept calling to him in his sleep, and not to mention their names are pretty similar. Back to the present. Taekyung breaks down as he tries to think of the answer to all of his current problems. Ever since that day, the nightmares wouldn't end, and no matter how many times he used his chi circulation, he couldn't seem to make himself focus. An image of Wee Kyung then pops in his mind, making him wonder why he cannot stop thinking about him. He is so worried and confused that he even considered going to a psychologist. Later on, Taekyung gets back to his apartment, but what waits for him inside surprises him. He opens the door to see Song Jinho working on the VR capsule, with a toolbox beside him. The two men stare at each other for a long minute before Taekyung runs to Song Jinho and lands a jump kick in his face. He then asks Song Jinho what he is doing with his capsule, to which Song Jinho responds by saying that he hasn't done anything to it and just got it back himself. He then kicks Song Jinho out of his room. And while he does that, Song Jinho asks why Taekyung got so worked up about a trashy capsule that doesn't even work. Taekyung threw it away on the streets to begin with. Taekyung replies, "That was before, but now he doesn't want anyone touching it." Song Jinho then screams his frustrations out to Taekyung, since he has to deal with the neighbors' complaints about him screaming at night. He then asks, "Who is Wee Kyung?" which turns Taekyung's skin pale after he reacts. Song Jinho begins to tease Taekyung and assumes Wee Kyung is a girl that he likes, but this irritates the pale Taekyung so much that he finally kicks him out. Moments later, we can see a vague image of an upcoming battle in a Murim world. Two sides, with both of their respective flags raised in the middle of a valley. Weapons are drawn on all the warriors, and they stand in silence as tension builds up. A scream from one of the soldiers initiates the battle, and both sides charge at each other with the intent to kill. Sparks fly as metal weapons clash with one another. From a cliff high above the battlefield, we can see a group of men watching them. It's Wee Kyung and his faction watching over the battle, and a familiar face is blurred out, but is most certainly the head elder. We then zoom into his face, which reveals an ominous smirk that sends Taekyung waking up from another nightmare. Taekyung wakes up in his room, sweating buckets, as he notices the nightmares are becoming more vivid. He then screams his frustrations to the world. He screams. He doesn't care about them anymore. So what if that Murim world is an actual world itself? There are going to be over 2,000 Murim warriors fighting. So what the heck do they want him to do about it? There are going to be monsters who are far stronger than Joe Pill. Do they want Taekyung to die fighting those people? He only lived in that world for a month, and the life that he has to live is here in reality. And there is nothing Wee Kyung can do now since Hyuk will probably deliver the message regarding the betrayal of the head elder, and that is something they'll have to figure out for themselves. He then suddenly remembers the words and faces of all the people who either helped him or cared about him in the Murim world, which now makes him feel bad. Then, out of nowhere, his cell phone begins to vibrate beside him, and it turns out that Choi is calling him. Moments later, we can see Choi flipping through a bunch of papers, and it turns out that the papers contained information about Taekyung. He finishes reading and asks the butler beside him for his thoughts. The butler tells his master, Taekyung is clean. He is not an abnormally reawakened being, and he did not approach Choi with ulterior motives. Choi then asks, has all of my behavior so far been mere coincidence? He asks his butler, did you know about the probabilities of having another awakening? The butler responds, they're roughly 1%. Choi corrects him, it is actually 1 out of 100 people. Not to mention, being a hunter is already an extremely low probability. He then asks his butler, what do you think is the probability of an F-rank hunter reawakening into a C-rank hunter? What about the possibilities of a C-rank hunter being able to solo clear a C-rank gate? The butler shares his thoughts. That isn't possible. He would at least have to be a B rank. Choi corrects his butler. Taekyung was able to do it. 5 D-ranked gates and 15 C-rank gates, totaling up to 20 raids. Choi was only there to observe him from a distance during those raids and did not even have to help him at all. The butler then asks, "Should I look into the matter once more?" Choi doesn't let him and plans to continue observing Taekyung's actions. The butler then smiles warmly and points out, Choi really plans on recruiting Taekyung into the guild. Choi confirms, that's correct, but once Taekyung becomes suspicious, only then will Choi look into his background. If that doesn't happen, then he will make him one of his own men, no matter how long it takes. He then notices Taekyung enter the room and plans on starting a business. A few minutes later, after talking for a bit, something surprises Taekyung. A down payment of $500,000 and a fixed salary of $50,000 with a 70% increase every year. He will also be receiving one of the highest insurance policies, a 40-floor studio, and his own personal car as well. The conditions of the contract are even better than last time, and with this, he will be able to have it all. He then thinks of the benefits he will receive and how the effort he put into becoming a hunter for 7 years is finally paying off. Choi then asks, "Has Taekyung resolved his worries?" He responds, "Yes, I did." He then asks, "Are you sure?" Taekyung can only force a smile before signing the contract. He flips and signs through the pages before reaching the last page. If he signs the contract, he can finally live his life in peace and comfort. He will be able to end the terrible life that he used to live, and he can finally say goodbye to the Murim world. As he signs the last page of the contract, the tip of his signature pen shatters into a bunch of pieces, and ink begins to spill on top of the contract. This makes Choi ask Taekyung once more, "Have you really resolved the problems you had last time?" This time he couldn't deny it. Choi then offered his assistance, but was rejected by Taekyung when he said that he needed to conquer it by himself. After hearing Taekyung's words, Choi cannot help but feel defeated. After being rejected 3 times, he asks Taekyung, "When should we hold our 4th contractual meeting?" Taekyung responds, "I should be available tomorrow at the same place." Choi asks, "Are you sure?" Taekyung reassures him, "I am. You have no idea how long a day is to me." Taekyung gets up, determined to survive and return to reality. Before he leaves, he says to Choi, "There's a chance I might have to increase my conditions tomorrow." He leaves Choi's office. Well, that's all for today. If you like this video, then don't forget to share and subscribe Sun Manhwa.